It's the Odd Drunk Podcast, a very strange podcast, the drunkest show in the world. It's Jackson and Colton talking out of their ass. We don't care as long as drinks are poured. Sometimes we have our friends here. We will talk about anything. We don't care as long as we have beer. And if you let that whiskey ring. The Odd Drunk Podcast.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't capturing.
Let's set the scene. Okay.
And how do we do that?
It's 1972, and you're on a lot of drugs.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's
I
it.
assume the episode has started now. What a great intro. What a great way to kick off. So, welcome back to the Hot Drunk Podcast. Hopefully, for you, it is not 1972 and you're not on a lot of drugs. But if you do fall under that scenario, I was just saying, then you're a time traveler or you just did a lot of drugs.
You just did a lot of drugs.
And somehow you're listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
But, but if you're a normal listener that's not from the 70s or doing a lot of drugs, we welcome you back to the Odd Drunk Podcast.
Yeah, it's the Hot Drunk Podcast.
We are back to normal. No more spooks and booze
Yeah.
or fears and beers.
Tricks and
It's
treats.
all over. Honestly, I mean, no, I had a ton of fun during Spooktober, but it is nice to get back to the normal formula where we can just do anything. So
we're just doing a pretty chill episode this week.
yeah, this last month has been pretty busy and hectic with all the Spooktober stuff and among other things in our lives.
Yeah, lot of stuff going on. So we're doing something chill this week. We got something special planned for next week, but
we definitely do.
You'll have to just wait for that to find out.
You know what? I was going to make a sly reference to it, but I'm going to leave it as a mystery.
Leave it as a mystery. Okay.
But anyways, as you can see from the title of this episode, we are doing album reviews again.
Yeah. These are fun.
And if you didn't catch the last one, I can't remember which episode it was, and I don't really care enough to look it up right now. But if you didn't catch the last one, so basically what we did, we each came with two albums. One new album, a recent album, within the last 5 to 10 years. There's some wiggle room there.
Yeah.
Like, for instance...
A wiggly new album.
Yeah, Wiggly... The Wiggles.
Oh.
It could be the Wiggles.
When was the last time Wiggles
yet.
came out with an album?
Unless you read the description by now, you don't even know. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't even have a description. Maybe we will claim every album we've done in this episode is by the Wiggles. But, so for instance, if a band's last album is technically old, I say that could work as a new album. But I don't think we have any of those this time around. So there's wiggle room there. And then for the old albums, anything before like the last 10 years or more. Really preferred if it was the last century.
Oh, the Wiggles released an album this year.
They did? You want to just listen to the Wiggles? No. But anyways... So we've got 4, I would say, great albums for you guys. And we're going to talk about them.
The Wiggles have released 57 studio albums.
Holy shit.
It's 57 studio albums, 3 live albums.
That's gotta
9
be...
compilation albums, 1 extended play, 32 singles, 2 audiobooks, and 4 karaoke albums.
Wait, let me look something up. I'm wondering, how does that compare to, like, Frank Zappa?
Oh, and 13 other albums featuring solo group members or characters.
Okay, Zappa still got him beat. He released a total of 113 studio albums. I don't know how that's possible.
Yeah, how is that possible?
But then again, it is Zappa. Anything's possible with that
lived
man.
in a recording studio, I'm pretty sure. Like,
Well, and I also think he lived in a different plane of existence. But
quite literally. Yeah.
yeah. Anyways,
He's like our universe's version of Kang.
honestly, it is funny that I mentioned Zappa because I almost thought about putting one of his albums on this episode. But I wanted to highlight a band that I believe didn't get enough attention at the time or even now. I mean, it would be wrong to say that they're not popular, but they are definitely underrated. But we'll get to them. Well, let's just say what we're talking about before we talk about it. So for your old album, you've got...
I went with a classic. I went with Lou Reed, his album Transformer.
Yeah, and that's the one that's got Take a Walk on the Wild Side.
Walk on the Wild Side. It's got Vicious. It's got Perfect Day. That's on that album. It's just, I really like this album. I've been listening to it recently at work.
It's a classic.
You know, people always talk about the Velvet Underground, rightfully so. But I think sometimes people don't give Lou Reed's solo stuff quite enough attention.
Right, yeah.
Not that it doesn't get attention at all. It's obviously a classic. But I think sometimes his solo stuff gets overshadowed by Velvet Underground.
Yeah.
And hot take, I actually prefer Lou Reed solo stuff over Velvet Underground in general. I'm a big Lou Reed fan.
No, I could see why you prefer his solo stuff.
I just listened to the album that you chose for your older album.
I heard you listening to it as I walked in.
Pretty cool album.
While you were playing Skyrim, which is honestly perfect music for killing and maiming people in Skyrim.
Yeah.
So yeah, my older album is by The Cult, a British band mostly, and it is Sonic Temple. Came out in 1989, and I believe, well, most people believe it is their best album. But I still think it's a very underrated album and an underrated band.
I have not listened to a lot of the Cult.
And there is some reasons for that that I will get into. And then for your new album, I really enjoy.
Yeah. I don't want to say they haven't been getting attention because they have been recently, but they're still not very big. The Chats out of Melbourne. Or not Melbourne, but they're that general area, Queensland.
Yeah, they're from Queensland, Australia. They're an Australian punk band.
Yeah.
But I've seen them describe themselves as shed rock.
Shed rock. Kind of a little bit of surf punk, a little bit of 80s new wave punk influence.
Yeah.
They're a three-piece. They're just fun. I like this. They released their first album, High Risk Behavior, 2020. Although they have a couple EPs they released before that, but they're fun because one of the things. I mean, they kind of took off a few years back because they released a few singles or an EP, along with some really shitty homemade music videos.
And wasn't that back in 2016?
2017 is when they actually took off. 2016, I think, is when they formed. But they make some fun music videos, and they're just they write some catchy ass songs.
I haven't seen their music videos yet, but on the Spotify app, it will show you like a GIF or I forget what they call it. Mm-hmm. There's definitely some good stuff in there. In the chats. I don't know if it. I figured it's one of the band members, but there's this one of this kind of fat guy like running around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the guitarist.
No offense, but it's great stuff, and it's clocks in under 30 minutes, but it's perfect for a punk album.
And it's got the most songs out of any of these albums.
That's the funny part,
but it's the shortest of them all. It's got 14 songs. But not a single one of them is over 3 minutes, and most of them are under 2 minutes.
I thought they had one that clocked just under 3 minutes.
One of them is 2 minutes 51 seconds.
Yeah, but none of them go over.
And then the second closest is 2 minutes and 44 seconds.
Yeah.
But the first, 3 songs are a minute and a half long each.
Yeah. Or not even that long.
Yeah.
But anyways, so yeah, that's your new album. And then for my new album, I was really stuck between doing what I inevitably did on the episode, Okay Human by Weezer, and then the new Abnormal by The Strokes. Both had a similar effect on me, I should say. Mm-hmm. This album came out back in April 2020, and by the way, the Chats album that also came out in 2020.
Yeah,
in March. Before we get into the proper reviews, here's what I'll just say. If you don't want to listen to the rest of the episode, or wait until we get to the Strokes album, I've never been a huge fan of the Strokes. No, I've always respected them. I've always liked a couple of their songs, but then when this album came out, I didn't have any new albums I was listening to. I was always listening to old stuff for a while, and it was during the middle of right at the beginning of COVID when it was getting bad, when nothing was going on. Yeah. It's a great COVID album, and I'll get into that.
No, but, I actually have some similar thoughts to this album as the Weezer album we listened to.
But here's the one thing I'll say.
The type of vibes that it gave me.
As being not a big fan of the Strokes, I like them. I respect them. They're great musicians. Julian Casablancas great songwriter. The guitarist, I forget his name, but I'll remember it later. But this is a complete album.
Yeah.
From start then. It's only got 9 tracks, but it clocks in at around, I think, 55 minutes. Maybe not quite that long, but
this is 45 minutes.
45 minutes, yeah. But yeah, I just think it is a great album front to back. And my other select, Sonic Temple, which I've never listened to the whole album. I've listened to the whole album a while ago, and I knew I wanted to do the cult. I've been wanting to talk about the...
Yeah, just throwing this out there. High Risk Behavior is 28 minutes long, the entire album.
Yeah, and it's 14 songs.
14 songs in 28 minutes. So
basically 2 minutes per song.
Reference, Transformer, Lou Reed is a 36-minute album. Shorter than I thought it was.
Well, a lot of albums back then weren't quite long. It was actually...
Yeah, generally it's considered over 30 minutes as an album.
Yeah.
Unless you have 14 songs. And but still manage to keep it under.
Yeah, in the Strokes case, the new Abnormal, 45 minutes is quite standard for albums nowadays.
Yeah, that's pretty standard. Sonic Temple is a 57-minute album.
That is a big album.
It's a long album, but
and we'll get into it. I think some songs could be cut short, but for the most part, I think their length makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's a long album, but it's because the songs average about 5 minutes.
Yeah. And there's definitely bangers in there, but I don't want to quite talk about it yet. So let's start with.
Well, hold.
Okay, I'm holding my horses.
No, you're finishing my sentences. No, I was gonna say hold your pants there. I wasn't gonna say horses.
Okay, my pants are on.
What the hell are you drinking over there?
Oh, wow. You really want to know?
I do want to know. We haven't talked. We got to talk about
I'm drinking a very exclusive beer. Only brewed here in Golden, Colorado for Rocky Mountain Water. Only. 100%, it says. Since 1873. They're not a well-known beer.
No, little indie brewery.
It's a very... I'm drinking Coors Banquet. I actually got it for when we celebrated Halloween. I drank like one of them. And also those weird pumpkin beers I got. I drank one of them. So I'm just left with them now. I mean, they're okay.
There's one in my fridge.
I forget what brewery they were, but they weren't featured on a podcast episode, so I don't have an obligation to talk about them.
Yeah.
And any specificity. So yeah, Coors Banquet, can't go wrong. Perfect palate cleanser for all the weird pumpkin beers we've had over the last
I
month.
have something in my liquor shelf here, also from Golden, Colorado. Can you guess what it is?
In your liquor shelf?
In my liquor shelf, one of the liquors I have is from Golden, Colorado.
It's a liquor?
Yeah, it's the absinthe.
Oh.
I have some absinthe from Golden, Colorado as well.
There you go. Golden, Colorado, known for Coors and absinthe.
Coors and absinthe.
That's
yes.
I'm pretty sure that's the only things they produce there.
I'm drinking.
Actually, Golden's a really cool town.
It is, yeah.
If you have time, if you live in Colorado.
Coors is actually a pretty decent beer for one of the, like an American lager, just no nonsense.
Straightforward, non-offensive. Yeah. Like I said, great palate cleanser. I'll get to more interesting beers in the coming episodes.
Yeah. I've got an interesting beer. It's actually not that interesting, like flavor-wise. It's just like a Russian stout, a very typical one at that. But it's from Grimm Brothers Brewing, which we had Grimm Brothers maybe a month ago on the show. I
do recall some time ago.
And this is the Dude Abides.
Yeah.
This is a White Russian stout. Although there's nothing White Russian about it. It's just a Russian stout.
From the Big Lebowski.
Yeah, and it's got a cool can. It's got the dude.
Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, the image of him
I heard
opening the milk up at the grocery store.
Don't quote me on this, but I actually heard that he has won his battle with cancer.
Yes.
Thus far. I mean, it can come back like a bitch, but...
Yeah. Well, that's
But
good
I've heard
news.
he's doing a lot better now.
Yeah.
So that's good to know. He's one of my favorite actors.
I love Jeff Bridges.
One of my favorite people.
He's just a great guy.
Unless he does something horrible, then I do not have any comments about Jeff Bridges.
Yeah.
So...
Unless at some point in the future, we need to disassociate ourselves from...
I know this is so
him.
off topic and you can take it out, but you heard about the onset accident on the filming of Rust with Alec Baldwin?
Yeah.
That maybe for another episode, but
It's a tragedy.
it's a tragedy. It
It's
was
unlikely.
unfortunate.
There's a lot of people, mixed feelings. People thinking, some people think Alec Baldwin should be held responsible. I think that's ridiculous.
I think, if anything, the gunsmith or firearm manager.
Yeah,
should be held
I think it's very
responsible.
unlikely he'll be held responsible, and he shouldn't be held responsible because, I mean, first of all, if he was held responsible,
Standard protocol wasn't followed.
It would be involuntary manslaughter, not murder.
Yeah, and from what I've heard, that
he was following as the actor, what would
his
be protocol for him.
Yeah.
He did not do anything. It was as far as
the actor isn't responsible for inspecting the
he was not
firearms.
acting recklessly.
But anyways,
yeah.
we don't know enough about it, but I don't know. I thought I'd mention it.
It's the
Now
first
that we're
time
kinda...
in a big Hollywood production since, I think, Brandon Lee.
Brandon Lee was the last one, and he was also killed from, I believe it actually wasn't a blank.
No, yeah. So
I think it was loaded.
No, actually,
Right? Or was
no,
it?
no. So Brandon Lee, what happened? It was a blank, but the firearms guy, had forgotten to clear the barrel. Because sometimes there can be other stuff in the
shrapnel
barrel.
and stuff can come out. I mean,
Yeah. So
blanks could still blind you. They could still do all sorts of things to you.
I don't remember the specific film, but there's another example of a film. I think back in the 80s, where a guy just with the blank, just the gas, actually shot himself in the head and gave himself brain damage enough that he died.
Well, yeah, because you're still.
The case with Brandon Lee was there was something lodged in the barrel. With Alec Baldwin, it was a bullet.
Oh, it was?
It was an actual bullet, not a blank.
Wow.
Which I think is even worse.
I didn't know that was true, but I did. Yeah, I heard somewhere that it did have one live round.
There was a live round in the chamber. It was a revolver. It was a live round, and he didn't know that.
Wow.
So,
anyways,
it's sad. Sorry, that's a downer.
You can take that out.
Yeah.
Anyways,
that's a downer. Let's get back on in a cheerful mood. Let's talk about some Lou Reed, the most cheerful musician.
Also, before we go on, this is probably going to be a shorter episode. I got the timer going right now. We've been doing some longer ones lately, and I kind of need to get back home and do some important things like homework.
Yeah.
And
I suspect
tired.
next week might be a long episode.
I do suspect, considering the
We have
special person that we...
we will have a special guest, a special topic.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But anyways, so let's get to Lou Reed, Transformer, 1972, breaking the New York scene, right?
Yeah. This was after...
I mean, he was already broken into the New York scene.
yeah, with the Velvet Underground. This was after he went solo. This is his second solo album. So
Okay.
I don't remember what his first solo album is. But I think there's a couple... I will say there's a couple weirder songs on this album.
And that's expected, right?
Yeah, it is Lou Reed after all. But I think it starts out really good. Vicious is a banger.
Mm-hmm.
I've been listening to this song, this album at work a lot.
Nice.
And when was the last? You've listened to this album before this time, or
I have a long time ago, though. I haven't listened to it since about 2018.
Yeah.
Ish. But I will say this is the first time I've listened to the whole thing through.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Vicious is a great start.
And then it goes into one of the weirder ones. Andy's Chest.
Yeah.
That is I think the weird
I,
song on the album.
One of my favorites is Hanging Around.
Oh yeah.
I'm glad you got the song list pulled up because there's no way I would remember the names right now.
Yeah, I've just got the albums pulled up, and
That one's kind of
we're just talking
got
about
a dirty
shit,
grit,
and,
you know?
Yeah. I think one of my favorite ones, I mean, obviously Perfect Day and Walk on the Wild Side are classics. Wagon Wheel, I think, is a super cool song.
Yeah, and it's not
It's not one of the more well-known
Old
Lou
Crow
Reed.
Medicine Show.
Yeah, no. different Wagon
At
Wheel.
first, I was like, wait, is this a cover? And no, it was not. But it is a good song. And then, yeah, obviously, Walk on the Wild Side. That's probably Lou Reed's biggest solo song.
That or Perfect Day.
Or most prolific at least.
Mm-hmm.
You hear that everywhere. It's still a good song, but it does have the issue of I've just heard it so much, so
Yeah.
I tend to skip it
Yeah.
on my listens. But if I just have it on background and it comes on, I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a good
know?
song. Perfect Day is a pretty widely used song in like movie soundtracks and stuff like that. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
maybe if you've noticed that,
A lot of Lou Reed. Yeah.
he makes good background music. I mean, Lou Reed, he died in 2013, 71 years old.
Yeah.
And I remember when he died, I kind of had this. I wasn't too broken up about it because it was a while ago, and I didn't care that much, to be totally honest. But
Oh, wow.
I did have this thought of well, that sucks because when I think of a rock star, I think of Lou Reed. Like he's that idea of like the doesn't give a crap like rock and roll guy.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
That I think of. That's
I did not know, but David Bowie actually produced it.
oh wow.
Did not realize that.
David Bowie was involved in a lot of that New York scene.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
David Bowie produced.
I mean, it makes sense.
He produced Iggy Pop's some of his solo albums in the early days. Lust for Life was not only produced by David Bowie, but David Bowie co-wrote and actually sang on a bit of it.
Oh, okay.
So some of the backing vocals and some of the guitars, David Bowie.
And I will say I haven't listened to a lot of Iggy Pop.
Yeah. And
So I
then
wouldn't know.
then apparently Iggy Pop's kind of lyrical style, kind of that random weird lyrical style Iggy Pop
Uh-huh.
influenced David Bowie when he wrote Heroes.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense, actually. So before we get into statistics and facts, I know you've been Wiggles discography, great.
I just switched
No,
to
but I know
my
you've been
browser.
I know you've been listening to this album recently. When did you first discover this album? Why do you still listen to it?
So I guess my mom really likes Lou Reed.
There you go.
And I've always known many of these songs.
Right, yeah.
I think it was only maybe 5 or 6 years ago that I actually sat down and went like,
Listen to the
I'm
album.
going to listen to, yes.
Because we've all heard these songs.
Listen to the album start to finish.
Right,
And
yeah.
it's just I think it's my favorite Lou Reed
Like
album.
I mean, like you said, everyone's listening to Perfect Day or
Yeah.
Walking Wild Side without even knowing it.
Yeah. And
Without even knowing it's Lou Reed.
Yeah.
mean-
It's a well-known album. And I've always enjoyed Lou Reed more than Velvet Underground. Like I mentioned, so I took a class that was like history of blues, jazz, and rock. And
As did I, yes.
yeah, were you in that class with me, or we took it separately? I don't remember.
Yeah, I wish I would have saved that class for later on in my college.
But I remember our
experience.
professor talked about the Velvet Underground, the importance of them, and then he at one point went on a little bit of a rant about how like after I don't remember the other guy in the Velvet Underground, the right hand man to Lou Reed, when he left the band, the Velvet Underground changed a bunch and became a little bit more alternative.
Right, yeah.
And more similar to what
That's always how I've seen them.
yeah, and they became a little bit more like Lou Reed solo stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I was the only one there that day that was like, I actually really like the Velvet Underground's later stuff because it's more similar to just Lou Reed.
Yeah.
And I really like Lou Reed.
A band / album that I also thought about doing for this episode, the Dandy Warhols.
Yeah.
They're very influenced by the Velvet Underground and Lou Reed. A lot of their songs have that same kind of lyrical style, tone, and just kind of atmosphere. But yeah, I was really close to covering 13 Tales from Urban Bohemia. But I was like, well, that came out in 2000, and well, that is old now, which is crazy. But I was like, maybe I'll save them for later. But I've always been a fan of them, and I can definitely see the influence listening to this album.
I just want to highlight some of Lou Reed's lyrics.
Yeah, go for it.
Because this is my favorite part about one of my favorite things is the lyrics get weird sometimes. So this is from Andy's Chest, which is the second song in the album.
One of the weird ones.
It's one of the weird songs. And the lyrics go, if I could be anything in the world that flew, I'd be a bat and come swooping after you. And if the last time you were here, things were a bit askew. And then later on he goes, if I could be any one of the things in this world that bite, instead of a dentured ocelot on a leash, I'd rather be a kite. And be tied to the end of your string and flying in the air, baby, at night.
It's really interesting because
like
I remember hearing these lyrics, but I didn't really pay attention to them. I was like, oh, that's just Lou Reed.
Because you know what they say about honey bears when you shave off all their baby hair.
Okay, Lou Reed.
You have a hairy-minded pink bear.
You're listing different animals. You start out with bats, that's a common animal. Then you get into ocelots and honey bears, which I wouldn't say are rare, but they're uncommon. People don't talk about them a lot in songs.
And then out of nowhere, he's going from talking about animals to yesterday, Daisy, May, and Biff were grooving on the street. Just like in a movie, her hands became her feet. Her belly button was her mouth, which meant she tasted like what she speaked. Ooh. Weird lyrics.
Very weird.
I love Lou
Honestly,
Reed.
that seems like you know what I would love to do, because it already seems like it was written by a bot. But I would love to feed a bot or one of those word predictor programs, because that's actually what they do.
Yeah.
Lou Reed lyrics, and then make a new Lou Reed song out of that.
I really enjoy taking song lyrics and reading them like spoken word, because especially lyricists like Lou Reed or Neil Diamond,
Yeah,
his
very
lyrics.
much is poetry.
No. It's weird.
Well, I
though.
think the rhyme is a lot like your standard poetry.
yeah.
The actual content
Like, have
is
you ever?
just way out there.
Little side tangent. Have you ever sat down and listened to like Neil Diamond
I don't listen to much Neil Diamond.
lyrics? This song I remember I always thought was weird. It's Song Song Blue by Neil Diamond.
Okay.
Song Song Blue, everyone knows. Song Song Blue, every garden grows. Me and you, the subject of blues now and then. But when you take the blues and make a song, you sing them out again. Or where? Oh yeah. So the Song Song Blue, weeping like a willow. Song Song Blue, sleeping on my pillow. They're fucking. Neil Diamond's fucking weird. So
Yeah. Yeah, you got that right. Oh, you've got another one for us.
no, I was just looking.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, Lou Reed, Transformer, good ass album. Go listen to it. Let's move on to Sonic Temple.
Yeah, okay. So, the Cult. Why did I pick the Cult?
Why? Why?
Why would I ever pick this band?
That's what I was thinking. Was listening to the album. I was just thinking, why?
I was thinking, damn, this is just like straight up like big stadium rock, and I'm all for it.
Yeah.
No, but honestly, I've always enjoyed a number of their songs, including one of the songs on this album, Firewoman, before I started actually listening to them. So I've heard Firewoman.
That's one of the ones that I recognized.
Wildflower, Love Removal Machine, Soul Asylum, Sweet Soul Sister. There's one more that I know I'm missing. I believe it's Little Devil. Well, anyways, point being, I've always heard a lot of their songs, and I'm like, man, this is big, this is epic, this is so rad. It's honestly some of the coolest like 80s rock I've heard. And I always kind of wonder why aren't they more popular? Why don't people talk about them enough? And I always get so excited, like when they're played on the radio, because it's just rad, big, epic stuff.
High octane,
But it's
rad.
This specific
rock and
album
roll.
is a lot more deep and open.
What this I would say, like, this reminded me. It reminded me of some like hair metal type stuff, but more rock and roll.
No, exactly.
Which I was enjoying because it had that energy of like hair metal, that era, but it had more like, because there's a difference between rock and roll.
So, anyways, a little
and this
quick.
had the roll. It's rock and roll.
It definitely is. And I almost chose their album Electric because that one's even more straight up, just guitar riffs. But there wasn't really much to talk about there. And honestly, when I was going back and forth between Electric and Sonic Temple, I was like, yeah, Electric has Love Removal Machine. It's got Wildflower, which Wildflower I would love to cover in our band at some point.
Be rad.
You'll have to check it out because I think it's feasible.
I love Tom Petty.
But I'm
just joking. I'm just
yeah.
sorry.
But I had to go with Sonic Temple because it's their big epic album. It's their biggest album on the charts. It went multi-platinum, and I'm not just basing it off of that, but it is peak the Cult. And honestly, if it wasn't for a particular genre coming up right after this album was released, grunge, I believe they would have been something. But the Cult was competing with these huge rock bands in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like AC/DC.
Yeah. It's hard to compete with AC/DC.
Ozzy Osbourne. You've got like Judas Priest. You've got Iron Maiden. Even the Stones, even though I don't really like their 80s stuff as much.
The Cult reminds me of like they were trying to do a similar thing that Guns N' Roses was trying to do, but they did it better.
Oh yeah, my dad will totally agree with you. I agree with you, and let me tell you how I got into the Cult, and not just this particular album.
Because you listened to Guns N' Roses and thought, I could see what they're trying to do, but they're not very good.
No,
so
honestly,
you found a better band.
Well,
if you can't tell, I don't think super highly of Guns N' Roses.
Neither of us do. And I agree with you. I think the Cult is the best version of that kind of rock.
Like
that
continuing what they were doing in the 80s.
It's not quite hair metal. It's not quite glam
actually
rock.
Evolving it.
If I had to show someone one, and it's from this album, one song that encapsulates 80s rock, but it's not lame, but it's still 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Firewoman. That'd be a great one.
Yeah.
Sweet Soul Sister, maybe Soul Asylum. I really like Automatic Blues. We'll get into it.
I liked Automatic Blues. That was awesome.
That one's a jam.
Yeah.
But yeah, Firewoman. That was probably it was the first Cult song that I remember hearing. So my dad, in my first car, he gave me some CDs to listen to. One of them was Pure Cult, which is a big compilation of all their hits. And I don't think it was the first song, but the second song on that compilation, and no, I can't pick that as an album, okay? But it was Firewoman, and like the guitar riffs, and like you have the rhythm going on while the lead isn't necessarily doing anything too complicated, but it's a really nice complementing melody, and it's just pure guitar awesomeness. And the lead singer, Ian Astbury, I believe I'm pronouncing his name right. His voice isn't like Axl Rose annoying. It's not super unique in the fact that I could pick him out automatically, but it's perfect for this kind of music.
Yeah.
And here's a little background. So they were known as the Deaf Cult, or just Deaf Cult, prior to 1984, and then they formed the Cult. And yeah, they're from England, West Yorkshire, if you wanted to know. And his previous band was known as the Southern Deaf Cult.
Oh.
But it makes sense marketing-wise to just go with the Cult.
It's a cool name. Yeah.
Because having the name Cult in your band is already kind of hard to market. But Deaf Cult, and that's not the kind of music they were producing. Some people do say they helped promote and get gothic rock going, but the Cult obviously switched gears.
Well, I think you're absolutely right that if it weren't for grunge coming around just around this time,
well, here's the thing:
this would have been more successful.
So Electric was a minor success. It was successful in the UK and all right in the States. But then Sonic Temple, that actually blew up. It went multi-platinum. Mm-hmm. It was their biggest album. Bangers. I mean, it was in the top 40, top 100. It was in all kinds of Billboard charts. And it was up there with Guns N' Roses, with AC/DC, all these big bands. And I do believe they are the best Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
And I love Slash and I love Duff McKagan.
Yeah.
But I just cannot stand Axl Rose.
Like, okay, so I mean, I can shit on Axl Rose all day, but my problem with Guns N' Roses is not with any specific member of Guns N' Roses. It's with Guns N' Roses.
Right.
Overall, they just didn't do any. I mean,
Welcome to Jungle's cool. There's a couple songs that I can enjoy, but like Sweet Child of Mine, I think that song is just trash.
So, like, for example, I mean, there's just some of my thoughts on Guns N' Roses and why I think I was impressed by this album. Is so like we're part of a Facebook group where people like to discuss 90s and 80s music.
Mostly grunge.
Yeah, mostly grunge. And at one point, someone posted on there for everyone, they're like, what's an example of a band that you think is overrated and like in the context of their contribution to music. And I said Guns N' Roses. And I got a lot of hate for that.
Wait, sorry, I was.
Someone was asking. They go, "What do you think is a band that you think is overrated in the terms of their contribution to music?"
Yeah.
And I said Guns N' Roses. They contributed nothing.
Guns
to
N'
music.
Roses had one big album, Appetite for Destruction, and
Yeah.
even that I'm not
It's
into.
not even like that great of an
And
album. I like Paradise City. That's my only Guns N' Roses song I like.
but no, yeah, I agree with you. My
But
dad will agree with you.
they-
The Cult, man.
Yeah, they contributed.
This is why I've been wanting to talk about them on this podcast. I almost thought about doing them for the last album reviews, but I was like, no, I want to
Yeah.
do this particular thing. I can't even remember what I
But-
did for my old
No,
one.
like I've always had this thought. I was like, Guns N' Roses are pointless. They've contributed nothing. I see what they were trying to do, but they failed. And then I listened to this album.
oh yeah, I did Brendan Benson for my
yeah.
old one last time.
But then when you told me, you said listen to this album, and I listened to it, and I was like, fuck, this was what Guns
I
N'
wouldn't
Roses
lie to
was.
you.
This was
Yeah,
what Guns N' Roses was trying to do. and if Guns N' Roses had succeeded, I think they would have been contributing.
Obviously,
to
not every album's perfect. And before I get into the kind of my review or just like my summary, so this went platinum, selling over 1 million albums in 1990.
It's pretty good.
They were about to be like a huge band.
And then Nirvana.
Yeah. And
I'm sure there's actually like quite a few bands that you could say that about.
no, I mean, they did the best version of this kind of rock, this 80s kind of not quite glam, not quite hair metal,
continuing
right at the
that,
right line.
like continuing the evolution of that
I would
style,
say they've done one of the best versions of it.
Yeah, I would say they took that 80s style rock and continued
And
the
now,
style of it.
I almost talked about Van Halen because they basically pioneered it in the
Yeah.
late 70s and 78. But I was like, everyone knows Van Halen. Not everyone knows the Cult. And I want to talk about bands that I want to recommend to you.
Yeah.
And that's why I chose Brendan Benson last time. And that's why I'm choosing the Cult now for a different reason, though.
Well, it's
But,
like, I mean, you mentioned Nirvana, and people talk about, I think this is important to point out, people talk about Nirvana sometimes as like a continuation or one of the continuations of like what was punk rock in the 80s.
yeah.
And it kind of, one of the many ways that genre evolved was into grunge and Nirvana and all that sort of stuff. But what happened to glam rock? People look at it now as like this like preserved style of music that never evolved, but it did evolve through like the Cult and bands like this,
Yeah.
you know, and the Cult did it very well. This is a fucking rad album.
It definitely is.
From song number 1, Sun King, I turned on this album and I was immediately like, okay.
And
This is
Sun
cool.
King is a really cool opening and like very stadium rock. It's very interesting they chose it for the opening because it's kind of a slow build to this big climax. But then you get into Firewoman. That is just pure like 80s rock bliss. I will play that on like while I'm playing the new Guardians of the Galaxy game or like killing people in Skyrim. It's just rad. The guitars, everything.
This is definitely a album you put on while you're playing video games type of album.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. And some of the standout tracks, so obviously, I also think Sun King's good. Firewoman. Edie Chow Baby. That one's like a big ballad, but it's not bad at all. It's cool. Sweet Soul Sister, I really dig that one. Soul Asylum. New York City. Honestly, those next like 4 or 5 songs.
Yeah.
And what I think is the most underrated standout song, it wasn't even I don't even think it was a single. Yeah, it was not. Automatic Blues.
I was digging that.
That's a
one.
rad jam.
I was
Like,
digging
that's
that.
something
That
I would
one did stand out
play.
to me.
Like, yeah. It. So this album's got Billy Duffy on guitar. It's got. So Mickey Curry, he played with Hall & Oates and Bryan Adams. He was on drums.
Yeah.
And then really the only like remaining member of the original band is the lead singer. Ian Atsbury.
Nice.
And this was the last album that Jamie Stewart recorded with him, the bassist. And their next album, I believe called Ceremonies or Ceremony, flop. And guess what? It came out in 1991, right when you have Nevermind, 10, Bad Motorfinger, like all these huge grunge albums.
Yeah.
And honestly, I haven't listened to it, but I don't think it's that good of an album anyways. But even if it was, I don't think it would have. What I really appreciate about Sonic Temple, it is like the end of an era, but it's a great send-off for that era.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I remember putting in the Pure Cult, like greatest hits album in my car. Got to Firewoman. I was like, how have I never, well, I probably have heard it before, but like, how have I never acknowledged this song before?
Yeah.
And, I only started listening to Sonic Temple over the last 3 years. You know, when I had access to Spotify where I could look up any band and all their albums without any problem. And as far as I know and as far as I believe, it's their best album. And I think it shows. And just overall, it's big, it's open, it's epic. It's over the, well, I wouldn't say it's quite over the top. It's exactly what it needs to be, right?
You know, yeah, I think the way I can sum up this album is, you know, I work at a hockey rink, and when we have hockey games, the adult league and stuff, sometimes they like it when I put on music while they're playing, and this would be a rad album.
What's really funny, at the time it got mixed reviews. Because it was being compared to like Guns N' Roses and like other bands at the time. I don't get why.
Why did these guys not become popular, but Guns N' Roses did? God damn it!
And Guns N' Roses is still around.
Yeah,
I mean these guys are still around too. They have new albums, and they're still a successful band. I mean, I wouldn't say they're not successful. They have over like 2 million active listeners on Spotify. Yada yada yada. But it was just it was the right album, but it was the wrong time. If it would have came out a couple years ago, if it would have came out instead of Electric, they would have been that big band, I think.
Yeah.
But
it's one of those parts of things in history that you wish kind of just happened better. You wish that.
Yeah.
The Cult became the popular band instead of Guns N' Roses.
But yeah, I've always backed up the Cult. And while I don't think it contains like all their great songs, I mean, I just think it's their most complete album. I think it's when they really formed their sound, when they stood out more from the other bands that they were being compared to.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's just this big, epic stadium rock. And would I always be in the mood to listen to it? The album? No. But would I be in the mood to like put on Firewoman or like Automatic Blues or Soul Asylum in like a playlist? Yes, definitely.
Apparently the Saudi Arabian version of this album has 14 songs on it.
Oh, it's got Born to Be Wild, their cover of Born to Be Wild. That was on Electric. And when I was thinking about doing that album, I was like, wow, that's actually the coolest version of Born to Be Wild I've heard, because I do not like that song.
Yeah.
By Steppenwolf. I know it's a classic or whatever. I just don't like it. But I heard their version, and you should check it out. And it's like, oh, wow, they made it like more rock, more kinda...
Oh, here's a fun fact. I scrolled up so you can't see it on my screen. What famous musician did backing vocals on New York City?
Famous musician.
Famous musician. We already talked about him today. His name has come up in this episode already.
Is it Iggy Pop?
It is Iggy Pop. Iggy Pop did backing vocals on New York City.
That's awesome. That shows you something. If he wants to participate in this, you know it's cool.
Yeah.
And that's honestly one of the better songs off the album.
It's a good song. I like that one. Yeah.
And and another thing, and we'll go on to the next one, but another thing I appreciate about this album is that it's definitely like, oh, I love you, baby, like let's make love vibe a lot of the time.
Eric Singer from Kiss did drums on one of the demo versions of one of the songs.
Oh, did he do which one was it?
Eric Singer says, under additional personnel, Eric Singer drums during first demo version of Sonic Temple 1988.
And he's one of the new members of Kiss, though, not the original.
Yeah. No.
He replaced
the
Peter
current.
Criss,
He's the
right?
current drummer.
Yeah.
Kiss,
I heard they're actually gonna get together.
Really?
One last time. I think Ace Frehley agreed to come back with them with Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons. Don't know about Peter Criss though, but hopefully, let's keep our fingers crossed.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't bet on it, but.
And honestly, there is a Kiss album that I do want to talk about. Maybe the next
Kiss.
time we do this thing because,
I know our good friend Caleb.
They're
is
obviously mainstream.
Is a big Kiss fan.
They're obviously mainstream and slightly overrated. They have songs that are underrated. They have an album that's underrated, but that's for a different day.
I think they're good. I'll just leave it at that. I like Kiss.
No, they're generally pretty cool. And but yeah, I mean, there's not much else I can say. I mean, it's hard to describe an album like that. Just listen to it on whatever you listen to, Spotify, YouTube. I mean, it's, I do love going to record stores, but this is the easiest time to access music ever.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to check it out, I'm sure there's a way.
Yeah. There's no excuse.
And I recommend put this album when you're like getting pumped or like when you're exercising or just doing something rad or skateboarding even or like fighting a bear, It's that kind of album.
Fighting a bear. Next time you're watching The Revenant.
Yeah,
during the scene where Leonardo DiCaprio gets mauled by a bear, put on this album.
And it's funny, especially the lead singer, Ian. He's always had like, how should I say? I mean, it's a little bit cultural appropriation, but he's always been into like Native Americans and stuff. And it's funny, my dad, when he first told me about the Cole, he was like, yeah, I thought he was a Native American guy first, but then I found out he's from England. And I was like, wow, that tells you something. But yeah, there's...
He actually is Canadian and moved to England when he was 11.
What?
What liar.
Now I'm even more mind blown. Okay. Well, I'm not coming here and saying I know all the facts about the guy, but I love the album. And I love the band, and I think
sorry. He moved to Canada when he was 11 and then eventually came back.
Oh.
So he's English, grew up in Canada
until he was 11.
Back. Oh, no. When he was 11, he moved to Canada. And then he eventually came back where he started performing.
Nice.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, definitely recommend that album. Are we giving scores? You want to give a score for Lou Reed? Or do you want to just say we recommend it?
We recommend it.
Yeah, because, I mean, scores are arbitrary, and that could always change, and, like, who cares? We wouldn't say, like, we might come across a time.
On the scale of 1 to 10 being 1 meaning we don't recommend it, and 10 being we recommend it, and there's no in-betweens.
10.
10.
Yeah, for both.
It's just
for all
1 or 10, and we recommend it, so that means it's a 10.
Yeah.
One of these days we're gonna throw curveball you and talk about an album we don't recommend.
One of these days we'll pick an album we don't like because it is just called Albums Review, not albums we like. But it's more fun to talk about things you like.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't want to listen to albums I hate for preparation.
Yeah, that's no fun. I like to have a good time listening to albums.
But yeah, there you go. Check out Sonic Temple by the Cult. And I know you've heard if you listen to any rock station, you've heard Firewoman at some point.
Oh, yeah. All right.
So we're to our new albums now.
Yeah. And my album beats out yours time-wise by a month.
as we did last time, we're doing them as they were released.
Yeah.
And it just so happens to be perfect again, where it's every other one is released closer or chronologically.
This album's in 27th of March, 2020. Versus the album you picked.
The new Abnormal that came out April 10th,
April 10th, like
2020.
That's like a 15-day difference there.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is by High Risk Behavior by The Chats.
High Risk Behavior by The Chats, not by High Risk Behavior.
That's what I said. By High Risk Behavior by The Chats. Yeah.
I love that cover.
Yeah, this is just so I've been listening to The Chats, and we said Melbourne earlier. If anyone from Australia is listening, I apologize. They're from Sunshine Coast, Queensland. It's not anywhere near Melbourne, as far as I know.
Sorry, sorry, Mr. Sunday Movies and Nick Mason.
I was saying that because we were talking earlier, and we were talking about how the Strokes are playing with The Chats in Melbourne.
Yeah, it's so funny.
That's why I said that.
You told me about The Chats, about this album. Hey, listen to it for the episode.
Yeah, we didn't collaborate on this. We just said, "What's your album?" He said Strokes, and I said The Chats.
Yeah, and then the Strokes, like literally the day of, announced that they're playing a show and a couple shows in Australia, and The Chats is one of the opening bands.
Yeah,
which makes sense because they're an Australian band and they're still based out of Australia.
Yeah, they're
as far as I know,
and they got their start on YouTube. That's where they went viral. That's how they became popular. So they released some an EP. And they released music videos with some of the songs, and they would they have a YouTube channel.
I'm pretty sure I've seen them before.
And I say I've just been listening to them, but this is not my first introduction to this band. Was back when this album came out, because back then. Actually, before that, I think because they had released this, before they released this album, they had released some of the songs. And I was playing in a punk band at the time with our dear friend Caleb, and we covered one of them.
Or shall you say Cheese?
Cheese,
sorry.
Yeah. We covered The Clap, which is on this album.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, we covered that. So that was my first time hearing The Chats.
That's honestly one of the best songs.
Caleb coming to band practice and saying, "I want to learn," because we all said we needed to learn a few covers to fill time at this gig. Everyone in the band choose a cover, and Caleb came and said, "I want to learn this one." So we learned.
Yeah.
We learned The Clap. But this album, I think, The Chats, they're kind of old school punk in a way.
No, when you sent it to me, I had to check the date that it was released. I was like, this sounds like something from the 80s.
Yeah.
Or maybe early 90s.
Yeah.
But
they're 2020.
That's what I really admire. They captured that sound so well. But at the same time, I was like, but it's not old because they're talking about like millennial things.
Yeah.
Like being broke and struggling to pay rent.
One of the songs I like on this album,
Dine and Dash.
Yeah, that's one I was gonna mention. Is Dine and Dash is a song about how they're broke and don't have any money, but they want to eat good, so they're gonna do the Dine and Dash.
And it's a really, I wouldn't say odd phenomenon, but it's kind of funny. Like their songs are funny.
Some of them are, yeah.
But
it's not on this album. They have a song called AC/DC CD.
I did see that one in their singles when I was looking through their stuff.
It's about how AC/DC is the second greatest band in history. I assume the first greatest band is them.
Right. Yeah.
In their logic.
Well, and AC/DC is a huge Australian band.
Yeah. Probably one of the biggest Australian bands.
Oh, yeah, undeniably.
Worldwide, yeah.
I mean, there's other good ones,
but
including The Chat, I shall say. But no, I was so happy you picked this album for two reasons. One, I haven't listened to like good new punk in a while.
Yeah.
2,
This
it's
is just a good new punk album, which is not recently. There's not been a ton of those.
no, and then number 2, it clocks in under 30 minutes, so I got to listen to it a lot. And
I took the bus. I took the bus to class today because my car is
and
needs to go
honestly,
to the shop, and I was able to get through the entire album
yeah.
on the way to class today.
And if you need a ride, let me know. We live in the same
Yeah,
apartments.
no, I will.
Side note, when we were talking about modding Skyrim and everything after, well, I don't know what you were doing, but like after class, and then you were like, "Oh, I'm gonna hit the bus," and then I walked off, and then just a minute later, I was like, "Shit, I should."
No, I actually did the same thing. Like as I was walking to the bus, I was like, I should have asked for a ride.
We literally live in the same apartment.
I'm like, it's too late.
He's
I'm already on the way to the bus.
I was like, "Oh, he'll be fine."
No, you were home. When I was walking into the parking lot from the bus stop, I saw your car there. I was like, I just could have asked for a ride.
That's great. But anyways, no, I've really been enjoying this album, and I gotta listen to it more. But like I listen to it at work and between classes, and it's just a fun album.
Yeah,
And it's not much to think about. It's just a straight up. I mean, yeah, like we mentioned earlier, like they consider themselves shed rock, and from what I was reading, it's because it's like a very, like, not condensed, but I forgot how they phrase it, like a close quarters, like boxed in sound.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. They're
it's very
they're bass heavy, but they're not. It's this weird thing where they're bass heavy, but the recordings aren't bassy.
yeah. No, yeah. I mean,
Like they use the bass like a rhythm instrument
right.
in this band. Yeah. And there's some cool guitar work in this too.
I really like which one, the like get the clown or get the grubs out or whatever.
Keep the grubs out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's there's some cool kind of like very 80s, kind of reminds me of like X, like guitar work in this too.
Yeah,
But
reminiscent of
it's more
X.
simple than like
There's definitely
than
like
X was.
there's a bit of like early Bad Religion influence there.
Yeah.
And I mean early, like their first album.
Yeah.
But no, honestly, I mean it brought me back in many ways.
It's just some good headbanging, like they got some fun sing along stuff. The clap
and like their
They-
longest song is 2 minutes and 50 seconds or somewhere
2 minutes
around-
and 51
yeah.
seconds. Do what I want. is
And then the
longest
shortest
song.
is like a minute and 15.
A minute and 15
Yeah.
seconds is their shortest song.
Well, I was looking at the
Dine
listing.
and Dash. Dine
I
and Dash
love
is
that
a minute
one.
and 15 seconds long.
I love Dinah Dash.
I think the clap
Pub
we mentioned
Feed.
earlier. I think
that's probably one of their bigger ones.
I think Pub Feed is my favorite one on the album. That one's just a good like kind of. They
guess-
make good use of chorus vocals.
This isn't really an issue with it because it's just this genre, but like some of the songs are so short, like I want more of it, you know. And I just got to listen to the album more because like there's some songs I just don't recall the name of or like what they sound like because it all started to kind of blend together. But as an album, it's great stuff.
Yeah, no, and I chose this album card. I've just been listening to them in general. They have an EP from 2016 and an EP in 2017 that both have some really good songs on them too that I recommend. But if we're talking about just albums,
This one's their first album,
yeah,
really.
the Chat's self-titled EP.
I would say EPs are allowed,
Yeah,
but I don't know if there'd be enough to talk
Get
about.
This In Ya is 2017, an EP from 2017. Smoko is a really fun song on that.
Nice.
Yeah, and then High Risk Behavior is their debut studio album, and they've already had drama in the band.
Oh, really?
The guitarist left
Oh,
after they recorded the album.
oh no. Of course he would.
Yeah, so Josh Price, the guitarist.
Well, did he come back? Because I know they're supposed to be playing soon.
No, they have a new guitarist.
Oh, they just have a new guitarist.
He just left to do other shit.
It's like we did the one album and now it's.
Their most recent release is.
Oh, they did the.
They did in the Metallica tribute band, the Metallica Blacklist. They did "Holier Than Thou."
I think I heard that.
Yeah.
Well, I think I got it confused because there's another punk band that also did "Holier Than Thou."
Oh yeah.
A bigger one. I forget what they were called though. I think it wasn't the Bad Brains. Let me try to find out. Keep talking.
"Holier Than Thou" was covered by Corey Taylor
Diet Sig. I'm thinking of Diet Sig. I
from
think.
Slipknot. Pup, which is a Canadian.
No,
band.
Off is the one I'm
Covered
thinking
it.
of. Yeah. That's the one I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From Circle Jerks and what's the guy? I don't remember his name. Chats. And,
I'll have to hear their version though.
Biffy Clyro, as a Scottish rock band covered. So those are the ones that covered "Holier Than Thou."
And since we're on that
Chats did
subject,
one of them.
you know, whatever you think of Metallica as a band, I think it is really cool that they did this. They got all these different artists to cover these songs, and it all went to charity.
Yeah.
And the charity of the artist's choosing, which is really cool. And that's a really fun way to commemorate 30th anniversary for an album.
I like you looking through this list of artists. You know, Weezer did Enter Sandman.
And honestly, their version of Enter Sandman is as legitimate as the original, I think.
Yeah.
I really dig it.
The Mexican Institute of Sound featuring La Perla.
No, they got a wide range.
Sad But True.
And Royal Blood.
St. Vincent.
I think St. Vincent's Sad But True is probably the coolest one they did on there. It's very Nine Inch Nails.
Cage the Elephant's on there.
Yeah, they're cool.
Yeah, a lot of some cool artists on here. But
Mostly a lot of Nothing Else Matters covers.
there's a lot.
That's what a lot of. I think there should have been they should have made a limit, but then that could be like, because they wanted the artist to choose their favorite song.
Nothing Else Matters by Miley Cyrus featuring Watt, Elton John, Yo-Yo Ma.
Okay, I swear you,
Chad Smith.
I swear you said Nothing Else Matters.
Nothing Else Matters. I might have. I'm slurring.
Nothing Else Adders. Just switch.
Nothing else.
Nothing. Nothing. Nothing else
Matters.
matters. Just matters. Yeah. Nothing else matters. In fact, when you say that, it doesn't sound that weird, right? Nothing else matters.
Yatters.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. I don't know where the Y came from.
No, EA.
Oh, yatters.
Yatters.
Anyways, let's go on. So yeah, I totally dig the Chat's high risk behavior. Great stuff. I love it. I'm so glad you showed me that album.
I'm not sure there's really much to say about the album, to be totally honest, other than it's just a really good new punk album.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like new punk. It feels like old school punk.
And you know what? I don't know about, well, you have so far, but I'm always going to make an effort with these album review episodes to introduce at least one new or like underrated band to you guys.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, we could talk about the big bands all day. I mean, easy. But that's no fun. Plenty of podcasts have done that. You know, I doubt a ton of podcasts have talked about the Chats.
And I wouldn't say the Chats are underrated.
No, they're up and coming.
They're up and coming. And
keep them on your. You
know
know what?
A lot of people outside the punk community are talking about.
Yeah, and if you're into punk at all, I think you'll love them, and keep them on your radar because I'm sure they got more great things for us.
Yeah,
and yeah, I knew when I listened to them, I was like, they're not quite British, and then I found out they were Australian. I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, those Australians.
Yeah. And that is really cool that they're opening up for the Strokes, which is a really big band.
Speaking of the Strokes.
And speaking of talking about underrated or up-and-coming bands, Strokes are neither of those.
Yeah.
But
they're very popular, and they've been around for a bit.
Yeah, since like 2003.
Yeah.
But I had to talk about this album. Same thing with OK Human, Weezer. Had to. And I was so close to picking this one for the first album reviews, but I was like, well, the Weezer one's more recent, more relevant. So I chose that. And I loved it anyways, so that's another reason I chose it. This one has a very similar effect on me as the Weezer album. It's a completely different sounding album.
Yeah.
But where do I start? So, as I mentioned before, I've never been a huge fan of the Strokes. I even joked about them a lot, especially to like my mom and sister.
I've always thought they're okay, but I never really listened to them.
Well, I've always respected them. I've always thought they were good, but
I had friends who liked them.
I just weren't super into them.
But
and what's funny, I know someone, my cousin. I won't say her name because there's just weird stuff going on. She's just being weird. But and if you're listening, I'm sorry, but why are you being weird? But anyways, she's always been a fan of the Strokes. And when this album came out, she thought they went too soft. And I'm like, and I'm usually considered to be like the heavy metal, hard rock guy. But I've been getting more into well, I think I have a good, I would consider myself to have good, fair taste in music. I like any kind of genre. If I dig it, I dig it. You know, I don't adhere to a genre. Well, anyways, she thought, they went soft. She didn't even like the album. But I was like, a new album from a big band. I was like, okay, I gotta check it out. I've heard people talking about it. Even my dad got into it. But he's always liked the Strokes, actually, which surprised me. But anyways.
Strokes do not strike me as a dad rock band.
Right. But actually, I mean, their guitar work is actually really, really good stuff and hard to do.
All good musicians, yeah.
And I forget the guitarist's name. But anyways, like I mentioned earlier, it was in the midst of COVID. It was when it was starting to get pretty bad in April. That was around that time. And I was like, a new album from the Strokes, big band. All right, I'll check it out. I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
And then I listened to it and I was like, this is exactly what I needed. This is just, it's so nostalgic sounding, but it's so fresh. It's so refreshing.
It's kind of hard to explain what this album sounds like.
It's very 80s, but it's also new. And
it sounds like it belongs in a Wes Anderson film.
Honestly, yeah.
It's a chill album, but not because it doesn't have energy.
No, it's definitely got energy, and there's some songs and there's some awesome guitar work in there.
It's chill just because, I was listening to this. I was coming home, and for a bit of, for a couple of songs, I was walking, and it's one of those albums where, a lot of the songs are songs you can kind of just walk and bob your head to and be like, just vibing.
Well,
if that makes any sense.
The thing, this is just like I said with the Weezer album, this is a complete album from start to finish. And it's not like, it's just got a unified theme.
Yeah.
It's not that all the songs sound the same, but they're all united under this kind of synth keyboard with guitar overlays. It's got a really cool vibe.
Oh yeah, the first song I put it on. The first song I was like, "This is cool. I'm digging it." And then the second, I think it was the second or the third song comes on, and it starts with this electronic beat.
And yeah,
I was like, okay.
And I think it's some.
Here we go.
I think it's some of Julian Casablancas' best work. I don't know his songwriting process for it, but it feels improvised. It feels very on the day of recording.
Yeah.
The way he sings some of these lyrics and the way it's kind of sometimes it's nonchalant and then other times it's big and epic and you got big falsettos and all that stuff, and then other times it's more just kind of not necessarily talking, but just contemplative. Like, I don't know. It's really hard to explain. And I don't necessarily know what genre I would place this in. I guess alt rock, but that wouldn't really be doing it service. And yeah, the Strokes, they've always been known for their dueling guitars, and it's still there in this album. It's not a guitar-centric album, but the guitars still do great work. So you've got Nick Valenzi and Albert Hammond Jr. I mean, they've been the same band members the whole time.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, yeah. And it's their first album since 2013. And, well, their last couple albums did well. They never reached, like, the same...
According to this, they've been working on this album since 2016.
That makes sense.
Took them a while to make it.
It's a big album. And I love albums that achieve this. One, it's weird.
They had very bad timing, though, because apparently, so in 2019, they performed their first live show in 2 years at the Wiltern in Los Angeles, debuting some of the songs from
bad
this
time
album.
with COVID.
And then COVID hit.
Well, what's really weird, like, this song was written before COVID, but it's so perfect for COVID. I mean, just the album title alone, The New Abnormal. It's like, this is what we're living in.
Yeah.
And, like,
the Wiltern is a great theater, by the way. I really like the Wiltern.
Is that in,
it's in Los Angeles.
LA? Nice.
Yeah. Cool.
I figured.
Cool theater.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
But so, like, their first album, Is This It? You know, it's got like that blue and like gold art, and another one I really like, First Impressions of the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got some of their harder hitting songs on it. Yeah, that's a rad album, honestly. But The New Abnormal, like I said, I never really been into the Strokes, but I listened to this and I'm like, damn, this is a good album. Like, I cannot deny it. And it's not usually the kind of music I listen to either, but it just hits me the right way. So starting out, Adults Are Talking, every song kind of blends in together, but they all got their own kind of flavor, but it's all under the same theme.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy Brooklyn Bridge, the chorus.
Mm-hmm.
That one's got a very, very strong 80s, like, summer vibe.
I remember that one, yeah.
And it's got great guitar work in it, too, with the dueling guitars. And then Bad Decisions, that one feels more like a traditional Strokes song, but then it gets into this big chorus. Julian Casablanca does this, like, big kind of vocal performance at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally dig it. And not every song I can remember exactly what they sound like. I mean, I would recognize them as soon as I listen to them. But then one of the more underrated songs, I guess I would say, is I believe it's Not the Same. Yeah, Not the Same Anymore. And that one's like this kind of reminds me of, like, it's not a bluesy song, but it reminds me of, like, Since I've Been Loving You.
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin. It's got the same kind of vibe with, like, the droning bass in the background, you know, like the slow walking bass,
mm-hmm.
the guitar work, and it's one of my favorite songs on the album. And then probably the biggest one, I'm not for sure, At the Door.
Yeah.
But I love the work on that. Like, there's not a song that I skip on this, because skipping a song on this would be a disservice to the next song, right?
Yeah.
Like, it just works. Like, front to back, listen to this album.
It is an album you kind of just have to...
Same thing with, like,
you got 45 minutes to kill.
Or have it on the background while you're walking to class,
when
or
you should be listening
while you're going to work. It's great to have on in the background. And also, I would say it was a great summer album time, but I think it really works as a night album. I love that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean they all have to be the same, but it's very much a good night album, like driving at night, or like it just really hits it for me. It hits the nostalgia factor, even though it's a new album. And it just really works for me. And I love the artwork.
Yeah.
I have a poster. So I bought the album on vinyl. That's how much I liked it. If I buy an
nice.
album on vinyl,
Yeah.
I like it. Because I can pretty much, well, not for free because I pay a subscription, but I can get music for free.
Yeah.
So if I buy it on vinyl, that means I really care about it. It means something to me.
Almost all the albums I have on vinyl are ones I like.
You don't buy an album on vinyl you don't like. Because
Well,
it's at least $20.
I have a few albums that I've gotten through mystery boxes and stuff like that.
Besides that, but
Source.
like when you hand select an album, it's something you like.
Yeah. Like I have a jazz flute Christmas album.
Well, I did think about getting, and I probably will for Christmas time, and we'll probably do some Christmas stuff. Just stay tuned.
Yeah.
But there's a Nat King Cole Christmas album.
Oh, cool.
That I saw.
Nice.
And I think I might get that. But and yeah, the album artwork. So it's actually painting by Jean Michel. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but this artist from the 80s.
It's a
It's
cool
called Bird on Money.
It's a really cool.
And it's a 1981
album
painting.
cover.
At first I thought it was made for the album, but no, it's actually an older painting that they used.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, it's a cool album cover, which, that doesn't really matter, but it's something to acknowledge if it has a cool album cover. And here's something else that doesn't matter to me. I didn't even know this until I just looked it up right now. It actually won Best Rock Album at the Grammys in 2020.
Oh, cool.
And like I said, calling it a rock album, I don't know. It's definitely got rock influence still, but it's just this just like fun, deep, nostalgic album. I really don't know how to explain it, but I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And this is one I can say, because like on the Cold album, I was like, oh, here's the bangers, here's the songs you. And I think it's similar for the Chats actually, in a different way. Those are both albums you listen to the whole album.
Yeah. But the Chats, it's because
all the songs are short,
it's
and
short,
it's punk,
and it's just
fun.
a quick.
It's fun.
It's just a quick romp.
Yeah, it's a quick, fun romp. But this one, you want to sink your teeth into. You really want to, and also I really appreciate, and I think this does matter in producing music. I mean, I don't think you should always do this, but I love the use of stereo. You'll have guitar on the right, guitar on the left. You'll have the synth maybe in the left center. Voice is always in the center, or sometimes it fades in and out of both. Love that kind of stuff. It tickles your ears. It's like ear candy.
Yeah.
And
This says it reached number 1 in Scotland.
yeah,
And number 10
that's cool.
in 6 other countries, including the US and UK.
Yeah. And it ended up selling. Well, I'm not finding that right now. And I don't want to slow this down. We got to end this pretty soon. But yeah, it was well received. And yeah, I mean, why am I talking about it here if everyone knows it's good? Because I still know people that even haven't heard of it. I know people that said they like the Strokes that haven't heard it.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I don't know if it's because it happened during COVID. It kind of went under the radar.
I think there's
because there wasn't a big
albums-
tour with it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of albums that kind of went under the radar the last couple of years.
Yeah. But I'm saying this is not like a Strokes mega fan. I think it's their best album.
Yeah.
Yeah, all their albums have bangers and have cool songs and cool guitar work and stuff and vocals.
Yeah, they got
But-
lots of cool songs.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're the Strokes. They're one of the biggest bands nowadays. But the new Abnormal, I would say you don't even have to be a Strokes fan, but if you like this kind of stuff, you'll love it. And it's just a great album beginning to end. And that's all I really got to say about it. Check it out. Check out all these albums. It's a fun time. It's just fun getting new music either from new bands, old bands, and not all new music is good, but I do appreciate it.
That's why we're doing these episodes.
Maybe next time
share some good music.
Maybe next time I'll pick a new album that I think has some issues, but maybe is pretty good. Like the new Foo Fighters album. They took some chances with that, and I don't think it really worked out. But there's still things to talk about it. But yeah, and also I remember last time we recorded, we had this idea to create this drunk playlist.
Yeah.
And we should do that.
We should actually get around to doing that.
We should get some songs from albums from last time around and then put some songs from these albums, try to make it sound right, which will be hard to do because you know what? And also, next time we do this, we could do completely different genres that you want. I
think this week we had 4 albums that they mesh pretty well.
I would say so.
Last time, not as much.
Last time I thought the Brendan Benson kind of meshed with Uncle Tupelo, but then we got to the new ones.
But then we had X in there.
And then X and Weezer.
Yeah.
And not even standard Weezer, orchestral Weezer.
Yeah, orchestral Weezer.
And also we recommend those albums, so listen to that other episode. But yeah, there you go. Those are our albums for this episode. Next week we got something really special planned for you guys. And we'll start the playlist and we'll start sharing it in our descriptions. Just put a little link for it. Probably on Spotify. I would say that's the most accessible.
Yeah.
Definitely. And just for fun, for us to listen to, see if they still hold up, and for you guys to check out some of our selects from these albums.
Yeah.
So there you go. If you enjoyed this episode or any of our other episodes, or if you hate us and want to tell us personally, follow us on Instagram. Follow us on whatever podcast platform you listen to, or subscribe, or whatever it requires. And if you really want to be nice, leave us a review. And I will say any kind of review, because any review is good. Preferably 5-star reviews.
Yeah, and check out the Wiggles' new album, Halloween Party, released last month.
You know what? If you're still suffering from the post-Halloween blues, check out the Wiggles' Halloween Party.
It's their most recent studio album.
It's a shame we didn't include it in this episode. Maybe we'll get it next time around.
But if Halloween Party is not up your alley, then you can also listen to the Wiggles' Choo Choo Trains, Propeller Planes, and Toot Toot Chugga Chugga Big Red Car.
That's honestly a modern classic.
Modern classic.
Yes. I was so close to picking that one.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably even better than the new Abnormal. Who knows?
Probably. Yeah.
But anyways, so yeah, we'll list all the albums, and I don't know. Do you want to give them? I mean, they know how to use the internet, right?
Yeah.
They're not idiots.
Yeah. Look them up.
Look them up. You know how to use Google. But obviously,
Lou Reed, Transformer, The Cult,
Sonic Temple,
The Chats, High Risk Behavior,
and the Strokes, the new Abnormal.
Yeah. Look them up.
Look them up.
If you're listening to our podcast, you
know how to. Yeah. But anyways, we'll have it all in the description. And, yeah. And yeah, we'll do that Spotify thing. That'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah.
But we will see you guys next week for a very special episode. I hope I'm not digging a grave there. It could end up being our worst episode. Who knows?
Yeah.
I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
But
it's gonna be cool.
Yeah, there you go. I hope you enjoyed it.
All right.
See you later, alligator.
This is not a test. I repeat, this is not a test. The Odd Drunk Podcast recommends that you follow their Instagram and join their Facebook group for more fun content. To view all of our current available streaming and social media platforms, visit our Linktree in the description below. If you enjoy the show, it would be appreciated if you leave us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. Okay, Colton, you can roll the outro now.